Hey guys, my name's Llama, and just the other day I made my return to YouTube after such a long time out. And after I brought out the first video to try and get back into the swing of things, I put a post out asking you guys what type of content you would like to see me making now that I finally have the opportunity to both play WoW and make videos again. And a comment was left on my post suggesting that I did a 10,000 gold before Wrath of the Lich King release challenge, as this is essentially going to mirror my pre-TBC release 7,000 gold challenge. And I really enjoyed that series, so I thought I would give it a go. However, I'm going to do a few things a little bit differently, so today in episode 1 we will be talking on how I've made a start on the challenge, but just before we do, I was going to dive into the specifics of what this challenge is going to be, with both the pros and the cons comparative to what you might be expecting. So let's take a look at that. So the first thing that I want to mention is that this challenge is going to be a little bit different from my previous challenge. First off is going to be the fact that we are aiming for a 10,000 gold present on my account on the realm that I've elected to do this on, my primary realm, Hirewood Village on the Horde side on EU. And as a result of me wanting to use this as prep for Wrath of the Lich King, I won't be starting the challenge at 0. This, however, is going to be offset and something that I will be explaining in just a few moments, but basically the 3,500 gold-ish that I will be starting this challenge with, in essence, will contribute towards that 10,000 gold. This is both to simulate so that you guys can play along with the fact that I have a bit of gold, I have characters already that I can use and professions that I can use, much the same as I would expect you guys to do the same if you were trying to achieve the same thing as what I'm going to be showing in this challenge. But also, it's actually going to be that a lot of that gold is already earmarked for other things that I'm attempting to do at the same time as this challenge. So, unlike in times gone by, particularly when I did the TBC challenge, my amount of playtime is considerably lower these days than it was back then. I am also going to be working on a few other videos and possibly some other series, as well as a lot of other goals within the game before Wrath of the Lich King releases, including but not limited to finishing off leveling my priest, leveling an entirely new shaman all the way to max level, and getting the mounts and professions of both of these characters up to Wrath of the Lich King standard. All of this is going to make a hefty dent into that 3,500 gold, but also I'm going to allow myself to use that gold to invest in order to use professions to be able to make it to the goal cap in time. And if you are intending on playing along with this challenge, that's something that I would probably recommend for you to do as well. Now, with all that being said, I think that as much as it is a benefit to start with a good 35% of your end goal on a challenge, the fact that I will be using what limited time I have to not only attempt this challenge, but also go through the leveling process on at least one character in its entirety and also parts of others, as well as leveling up multiple professions and getting multiple mount purchases out of that gold, and still aiming for 10,000 gold at the end of all of this, does help mitigate that to make the true nature of this challenge just as difficult as the last. Unlike last time, I am going to have a little bit more time in terms of the actual time between the start of the challenge and the release of the expansion, or at least from what we expect the expected time for the Wrath of the Lich King release to be. But I am going to have less playtime in that time period as well, on an hours by week basis, so here's hoping we can still achieve it. But for now, let's dive in with what I did at the start for making a start with this challenge for the rest of episode 1. So the first thing I did was log in on my banking character, have a look at what gold I had to begin this challenge and what things I had to sell, because I haven't actually really been playing WoW very much since returning, and that means that this character hasn't been touched really in almost 6 months, and as you might expect, I'd completely forgotten what I had. So once I established that I had about 3,500 gold, I put myself into a position where I was able to buy and craft items with alchemy to get a few things up on the auction house, to have selling with my warrior that I knew was in a position to have the potential for procs when making flasks. Next up, I decided that I wanted to get some early gold on the board with a relatively simple farm, so I took my warrior down to Zul'Farrak to do the reflective farm that I have highlighted in one of my other videos, using the damage from blocking attacks on my warrior to kill the zombies in WOTLK. This gets you a very consistent but relatively low amount of gold per hour, but I thought that was excellent for making a start with regards to just wanting to get something on the board for this challenge. Next up, I logged onto my rogue to go over to Mana Tombs and do some of the solo runs in there for doing the chests as well as a bit of mining. This is considerably more lucrative, but does require a little bit more brain power comparative to the warrior, so I did have to go quite slow and steady while I tried to remember where my keybinds were. I do also at points find myself dying to mobs that I wouldn't normally do because I simply just forgot the techniques that I was using, and on one occasion I did run past a corium vein, having forgotten that I was a miner. Oops. After this excellent start came the downside for this particular part of the challenge, which was that this is when I had to start spending a bit of gold. Now, I invested quite a lot of gold at the start of this episode, so I've put 50 gold into a respec for my warrior. Not all that impressive, but it was something I needed in order to be able to play and enjoy the game in the meantime while doing this challenge. But also invested about 300 gold to make a dent in my priest tailoring skill, getting it up to about 360 with a view to be able to then use this profession in order to make a bit more gold for this challenge going forward. It was also at this point that I found that I had rather a large amount of cloth in my priest's bank that I was able to withdraw and put for sale for getting a bit of a head start on this challenge. Something that I also recommend that you all do, because if you're anything like me, you're probably knee-deep in alts that have got all sorts of lovely goods in their banks that you've forgotten about, so it's well worth a look. After this is when I got somewhat sidetracked and found myself doing some of my other goals within WoW, such as levelling my priest and levelling my shaman, as well as making a small dent on some of the shaman's professions as well. So let's round up where we're at the end of episode 1. Okay, so the first thing we're going to notice is up here we have actually made quite a substantial loss during episode 1, and that was to be expected. As we already mentioned, we spent a lot of money on levelling up our tailoring, as well as a little bit on talent respecs and other little bits along the way. So we are looking at about a 400 gold loss to start. But as you can see, we have also got quite a lot of stuff sat in our mailbox to be put for sale, which is very promising. And when we get all this up on the auction house, we will be able to take a look at what we've got in regards to value on the auction house in our non-liquid cash reserves to be considered as part of our gold total for the end of this episode. Now, just so you all know, we did have about 300, I think, gold in items on the auction house to be considered with that 3,500 gold that we started with. So we're going to post these now, and then if we consider that 300 on top of there, we would have had in and around a total net worth of about 3,800 gold before we began. After we click post an awful lot of times, we'll be able to see where we're at with regards to our value of auctions we'll have after this. As you can see on this list of things that we're currently posting on the auction house, a lot of this is going to be in the things that we were able to farm from doing WOTLK with regards to the Mage Reef cloth, and possibly some of the lower level essences that we will have got and some dusts from disenchanting from that farm. But the majority is going to be from the Mana Tombs farm that we were able to complete to get us all of that arcane dust, the greater planar essence, as well as also from disenchanting the items that we made while levelling up our tailoring. Now, just for the sake of making sure it updates, we'll close this and go over to my auctions. And as you can see, we're already looking at 1,303 gold that we have on the auction house. So our total net worth when we started was about 3,800. Now that we've put in a little bit of time, we've got ourselves with a total net worth of about 4,380 gold, give or take, which is absolutely fantastic. Not bad at all considering how little time I've been able to put into it. So that's us off to a flying start, and if we are able to continue at that rate, we will hit our target with plenty of time to spare. But that is to bear in mind that we did put in a little bit more time in the last sort of 24 hours or so since we started this challenge than we might sometimes be able to do at other points during that challenge. But thanks for watching, guys, and I hope to see you in the next one, where hopefully I am aiming to be able to get quite a large amount of those current auctions sold. But for now, I will see you in the next one. Laters.